You thought being friendly made you a better person, more likable, more human. But you never asked what it was costing you, because here's the truth. No one dares to admit. The world does not reward kindness. It exploits it. Every time you nod when you want to disagree. Every time you laugh when the joke is not funny. Every time you say yes just to be liked. You are not building a connection. You are leaking power. It starts subtly. A drained feeling after a conversation. That empty silence in your head after the party. That strange sense that people love being around you. But no one really knows who you are. You have confused being liked with being seen. And that's how they get you. The more agreeable you become, the more invisible you are. You bend, shrink, adjust, smile, until you disappear. Until even you don't recognize yourself anymore. That's not kindness. That's self-erasure. And they won't stop you. They will encourage it. They will reward your silence, applaud your politeness, use your softness as a doormat for their agendas. Because of friendly people, they're easier to control. Machiavelli saw it centuries ago, that the appearance of virtue is more useful than virtue itself. And in this modern world, your friendliness has become a costume, worn so long it feels like skin. But here's the question. Are you being kind, or are you being used? If that question makes you flinch, good. It means something inside you is waking up, something sharp, something real, something they hoped you'd never find again. We have been taught that being sociable is a virtue, that smiling is strength, that being liked means being good. But Machiavelli would have laughed at that idea, not out of cruelty, but clarity. To him, sociability was not a virtue. It was a strategy, a political tool, a mask worn to navigate power, not to display goodness. And the moment you forget that, you become the kind of person society loves the most, predictable, agreeable, easy to mold. Machiavelli's genius was not in promoting evil, it was in exposing illusions. He did not tell rulers to be cruel, he told them to be smart, to use appearances when necessary. Because the masses don't follow virtue, they follow signals, image, performance, repetition. And friendliness, that's one of the most profitable performances there is. The world celebrates sociability, not because it's good, but because it makes people easier to manage. A friendly employee does not resist. A friendly citizen does not question. A friendly partner apologizes before they even finish a sentence. And you, the friendly one, wonder why you feel so drained. It's because you have mistaken accessibility for authenticity. You have believed that the world wants your truth, when really it just wants your cooperation. Machiavelli warned us, everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. Translation, it's not the content of your soul that people engage with, it's the costume you wear. And if that costume happens to be friendly, warm, polite, they will love you, as long as you never stop wearing it. But don't mistake that love for respect. It's not. It's convenient. And convenience is disposable. So, here's your first real choice. Will you keep being socially rewarding to others? Or will you become psychologically sovereign, even if that means being misunderstood? Because in a Machiavellian world, it's not the kind who survive. It's the clear, the ones who don't chase connection. They command it. Friendly people rarely notice when it starts. The small favors, the emotional labor, the silent expectation that you'll always say yes. You smile, you nod, you help, not because you want to, but because saying no makes your chest tighten. That's not generosity. That's fear, disguised as kindness. And it's why you're the first to get used. You've been trained, not raised, trained, to avoid conflict at all costs, to prioritize other people's comfort over your own truth. To be nice even when your soul screams otherwise. Somewhere along the way, you learned that rejection feels like death, so you perform, you agree. You adapt your personality like a costume, swapping in whatever version of yourself the moment demands. And manipulators, they can smell that from across the room. They don't go after the strong, they don't bother with the ones who say no, they target the overly agreeable, the ones who say it's okay, when it's clearly not. The ones who over-explain, over-apologize, and overextend. Because they know you won't fight back. You're too afraid of being rude, too afraid of being labeled difficult, too afraid of losing your social standing. And so they use you, slowly, skillfully. They make you believe you're choosing to help, that your friendliness is mutual, that your availability is being appreciated. It's not. It's being cataloged as weakness. They remember who bends, who accommodates, who answers at midnight, who never pushes back. And once they know that about you, they'll test your limits. Not all at once, that would expose them. But in tiny increments. A favor here, a guilt trip there, an expectation that grows quietly, week by week, until your time, your energy, even your self-respect no longer feel like they belong to you. You gave them away, willingly, all in the name of being nice. And the worst part, you'll defend them. You'll make excuses for their behavior, because the alternative, facing the truth, is too painful. But pain has a purpose, and it's trying to show you something. You're not kind, you're compliant, and you're being harvested. Because in a world run by advantage, the friendly are fuel, easy to extract, easy to drain, easy to replace, until you learn to stop smiling by default, until you learn that your yes has value, until you stop fearing rejection more than you fear being used. You'll keep getting chosen, not for your soul, but for your silence. You go to the party, you smile, you laugh at stories you have heard 100 times, you perform, and for a moment you feel included, surrounded, connected. But when you get home, something creeps in. Not loneliness, worse, emptiness, a hollow ache in your chest you can't explain. You were with people, but no one saw you. That's the myth. The cruel illusion you have built your social life around. That being included means being understood. That being surrounded means being safe. It doesn't. Because what you think is connection is often just submission. You've mistaken your social adaptability for belonging, but really, it's been quiet self-betrayal, layered over years of needing to be liked. You don't belong to people. You belong to the version of yourself that pleases them. That's not intimacy. That's imprisonment. You've been clapping on cue, smiling on schedule, laughing just loud enough to blend in. But not so loud you stand out. You've censored yourself in real time, filtered your thoughts before they ever had a chance to breathe. Because you're afraid. Afraid that if you showed your real opinions, your real mind, your real silence, you'd be left out. Unliked, uninvited. And that fear, it's not just social, it's existential. Because deep down, you've convinced yourself that being alone equals failure. So you seek proximity, not closeness, just proximity. You sit in rooms full of people and shrink. You talk all night and still feel unknown. You touch shoulders with the crowd. But your soul is untouched, and they call it community. But Machiavelli would have called it voluntary submission. A person so desperate to be accepted, they trade their clarity for comfort, their edge for approval, their truth for applause. And the cost? Your identity. You lose it in pieces. A silenced opinion here, a fake laugh there, a tolerated insult you don't push back on. Until eventually, you're not part of the group. You're a reflection of it, echoing whatever keeps you safe. But here's the irony. You think they like you, but they've never even met you. They like the version of you that doesn't challenge them, that doesn't threaten the script. You're not loved, you're useful. And when you stop being useful, you'll be replaced. So ask yourself, do they really see you? Or do they just approve of how well you disappear? You think you're a nice person, but you're not. You're obedient. There's a difference. Your smiles, rehearsed, your politeness, programmed, your agreeableness, installed like software. You didn't choose to be this way. You were conditioned. From childhood, you were told to be polite to adults who made you uncomfortable, to say it's okay when it wasn't, to hug people you didn't trust, to sit still, stay quiet, and never question authority. At school, you learned that being liked by teachers was more important than being honest with yourself. You got punished for questioning rules, rewarded for fitting in. Then you grew up, and the programming followed you. Now you're in boardrooms, not classrooms, still raising your hand silently, hoping someone gives you permission to speak. At work, you nod in meetings you disagree with. At home, you hold your tongue to avoid conflict. Online, you dilute your opinions to protect your image. You're not being kind, you're being compliant, because somewhere deep inside, you still believe that being liked equals being safe. And manipulators love that. They know you've been trained to avoid discomfort, that you'll choose harmony over honesty every single time. They don't have to force you to submit. You do it on autopilot. That's why the world loves people like you. You're efficient, predictable, non-threatening. But here's the truth. Niceness is not a personality. It's a survival tactic. And if that line stings, good. It means your real self is somewhere underneath, furious. Furious that you've been shrinking to fit into spaces you were meant to outgrow. You weren't born to be nice. You were born to be clear, to be sharp, to be unshakable. But first, you need to unlearn your obedience. And remember, you don't owe anyone your politeness, especially not those who benefit from your silence. There's a reason the world keeps telling you to be sociable, to smile more, to be agreeable, to go with the flow. It's not because it makes you better. It's because it makes you easier to manage. Governments, companies, institutions, they all benefit from people like you. Friendly, flexible, non-confrontational, people who don't rock the boat. Because a mind trained to seek acceptance will never question authority. A person who needs to be liked won't speak up when something feels wrong. They'll choose peace, even when it costs them truth. That's the kind of citizen the system wants. That's the kind of employee corporations reward. That's the kind of follower the modern world breeds. Performative, polite, powerless. And the more you smile, the more power you surrender. You become less of a thinker and more of a mirror, reflecting what others want to see, while your own judgment fades into the background. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He wrote about rulers who projected virtue, not because they were good, but because it was effective, because the appearance of kindness pacifies the masses. It is unnecessary for a prince to have all the good qualities, but it is very necessary to appear to have them. Translation: virtue is a tool, not a truth. And friendliness? It's one of the sharpest tools of all, because when people are smiling, they're not rebelling. When they're nodding, they're not resisting. And when they're trying to belong, they're not thinking for themselves. So ask yourself, are you living in alignment, or are you just playing your assigned role? Because the system doesn't fear the angry, it doesn't fear the loud, it fears the clear. Clarity can't be controlled, and clarity never performs. Stop being friendly for just 1 week, and watch what happens. Don't reply right away. Don't explain your silence. Don't smile when something annoys you. Don't say yes out of guilt. You'll notice it almost immediately. The group chat goes quiet when you go quiet, not because they care, but because they relied on your energy to keep the illusion alive. You were the buffer, the balm, the one who smoothed over tension and filled awkward gaps with politeness. And when you stop, they panic. Because you've broken the unspoken agreement, the one where you were supposed to always be available, agreeable, harmless. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't argue. You simply withdrew. And that was enough to make the room shift. You'll hear things like, "Are you okay? You've changed. You're being distant lately." But here's the uncomfortable truth. They don't miss you. They miss your submission. They miss the version of you that was easy to decode, the one who smiled on schedule and never made them confront themselves. Your withdrawal becomes a mirror. It reflects their dependence on your validation, and it forces them to sit with their own emptiness. Because deep down, they relied on your friendliness to distract from their own lack of depth. When you leave a room without apologizing, when you say no without a smile, when you stop softening your tone just to be liked, you're not being rude, you're being real. And for people who are addicted to performance, real is terrifying because it can't be controlled. And that's the moment they start to resent you. Not because you've wronged them, but because you've stopped performing for them. You've broken character. And now they don't know how to engage with you anymore. You're no longer the reliable extra in their emotional drama. You've become the one thing they can't script, unbending. And that's what real power looks like. Not noise, not rebellion, silence. With boundaries. That's what terrifies them the most. There's a war inside you, not the loud kind, not the kind with fists and fire. It's quieter, more subtle, more dangerous. It's the war between clarity and sociability, between being honest and being accepted, between truth and comfort. You've been taught to chase social ease, to keep things light, polite, digestible. So you avoid saying what you really think. You dress your questions in soft tones. You smile through discomfort. Because being socially smooth has become the new intelligence. But clarity, real clarity, it doesn't blend in. It burns through illusions. It makes people uncomfortable. And it makes you dangerous. Because clarity doesn't seek applause. It seeks truth. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't ask, will they understand me? It says, this is what I see. This is what I know. Even if the room goes silent. Even if no one claps. That's the kind of presence Machiavelli admired. Not the one who smiles to be liked, but the one who sees too clearly to play the game. He knew the cost of truth. He knew that most people are not afraid of being wrong. They're afraid of being seen. And clarity sees through everything. That's why your sociability has become your shield. It protects you from being exposed. It helps you fit in. It keeps you liked. But here's the cost. You've been trading intellectual integrity for social survival. Every nod you fake, every silence you keep, every opinion you swallow, it stacks up. Until your mind isn't your own anymore. It becomes a reflection of what you think others want from you. And the war continues, quietly, between the version of you that wants to be liked and the version that wants to be free. But here's the truth Machiavelli whispered through centuries. You cannot be sovereign and sociable at the same time. One of them will always kneel. And the one that stands, that's the one that defines your life. If you want to stop being used, you don't need to become cruel. You need to become clear. You need to understand. You were not born to be agreeable. You were trained to be pliable. And it worked. But the training can be undone. This isn't about becoming distant or emotionless. It's about reclaiming your edge. That sharpness you lost from too much smiling, too much nodding, too much pretending not to notice when you were being taken advantage of. So, how do you begin? You reprogram yourself with sovereignty, not sociability. You stop responding immediately to every message. You stop explaining your silence. You start letting your no stand without a nervous laugh attached to it. You stop saying, I'm just trying to be nice, and start asking, why am I so afraid of being misunderstood? Machiavelli never begged to be liked. He wrote with the assumption that only a few would understand. And that's the first rule of reclaiming your power. Stop diluting your message to be digestible. Power doesn't whisper apologies between sentences. Second, practice calculated presence. You don't need to be everywhere. Be rare, be strategic, be missed. Third, create friction. Say what others avoid. Pause when they expect a reply. Hold eye contact longer than comfort allows. Let your edge make the room adjust. Because friendliness seeks approval, but clarity, it reclaims respect. You were never weak. You were just too accessible, too available, too eager to be liked. But that version of you was negotiable. Now, it's time to become unbending, not for attention, but for alignment, not to be feared, but to be unusable. Because once you stop being so friendly, you stop being furniture in people's lives and start being fire. There's a moment in every awakening when the silence gets loud, not the outer silence, the inner one, the one that arrives when you stop people-pleasing, stop over-explaining, stop reshaping yourself to fit. You start speaking less, feeling more, sensing when a room shifts because you no longer perform, and suddenly, you're misunderstood. Labeled cold, called arrogant, told you've changed. But the truth is, you're not changing. You're becoming real. You're not crazy. You're just no longer easy to digest. And that makes people uncomfortable, because your clarity exposes their confusion. Your silence disrupts their noise. Your refusal to bend makes them question their own spine. And that's when the isolation begins. Not because you push people away, but because you stop being what they needed you to be. The friendly one, the agreeable one, the one who never said no. You've broken their emotional contract, the one that said, I'll be convenient if you approve of me. And without that contract, they don't know how to relate to you anymore. But that isn't failure, that's freedom, because clarity costs connection, the fake kind, the fragile kind, the kind built on masks and mutual denial, and in its place, something rare begins to form, self-respect, peace, freedom from needing to be read correctly to feel real. So, when the crowd grows distant, when the room no longer celebrates your presence, when your truth gets you misread or ignored. Don't shrink. You're not losing yourself. You're finding the parts they taught you to hide. And what you're feeling, that ache, that friction, that solitude, it's not a breakdown. It's the cost of becoming clear. You were taught to be liked, to be friendly, to be easy to understand. And for a while, it worked. People liked you. They smiled. They included you. But deep down, you knew. They did not respect you. They used you. Because friendliness is currency. And the world spent yours without ever paying you back. But something's changed. You have stopped flinching at disapproval. You have stopped shrinking for comfort. You have stopped chasing applause like it was oxygen. And now, they don't know what to do with you. You still show up, still speak, still move through the world. But you are different now. Colder, sharper, still, but unshakable. They won't know what changed, but they will feel it. Because the version of you they could use is gone, buried in silence, and reborn in sovereignty. You're no longer performing. You're no longer bendable. You're no longer available for cheap approval. Now, you carry presence like a blade, and boundaries like armor. Being friendly got you liked, but being sovereign gets you feared and respected. So, don't apologize. Don't soften. Don't step back into the costume just to make them comfortable. You were not made to be liked by the crowd. You were made to outgrow it. Be untouchable. Not because you are above them, but because you're no longer owned by them. And that is power.